the first man to break the code. For decades, silence protected the New England Mafia. But silence only works as long as everyone believes in it. Joe Barboza didn't grow up dreaming of power. He wasn't a planner, a negotiator, or a diplomat. He was an enforcer. A man built for intimidation and violence in a system that relied on people like him to stay clean at the top. They called him the Animal. Barboza did the work others wouldn't. He carried out orders. He enforced discipline. He made sure problems disappeared quietly. For years, that made him valuable. And in this world, value was protection. Until the pressure changed. By the late 1960s, Barboza's usefulness started to outweigh his safety. Arrests came faster. Charges stacked higher. Promises from above felt thinner. The system that once shielded him now felt distant, calculated, and cold. This is the part most mafia stories skip. Men don't break Omertà because they suddenly lose loyalty. They break it because they believe loyalty has already been broken. Barboza wasn't afraid of prison. He was afraid of being forgotten inside it, afraid that the people he protected would survive comfortably while he carried the weight alone. Federal prosecutors understood that fear. They didn't appeal to conscience. They appealed to time. Decades instead of years. Life instead of release. Then they offered something New England had never truly faced before. A choice. Stay silent and disappear into the system. Or talk and rewrite the rules. When Joe Barboza made his decision, it wasn't emotional. It was calculated. He didn't whisper. He testified. In open court. On the record. Against men who had ruled New England quietly for years. That single act didn't just damage the organization. It exposed it. Providence felt it first. Then Boston. Then the rest of New England. Investigations gained traction. Cases that once collapsed began to stick. The illusion of untouchability shattered. But breaking the code doesn't mean escaping it. Because once silence is broken, there is no protection left. And Joe Barboza would soon learn that talking doesn't end the story. It only changes how it ends. After the silence broke, testifying was only the beginning. When Joe Barboza took the stand, the courtroom became something New England had never really seen before. An insider explaining the machine out loud. Names, roles, structure, how orders moved, how discipline was enforced, what silence had hidden for decades. For prosecutors, it was a breakthrough. For the mafia, it was an earthquake. Convictions followed, not all at once, but steadily. Cases that once stalled now had a spine. Men who believed they were insulated by silence suddenly realized that protection had limits. The structure didn't collapse overnight, but it bent in ways it never had before. Barboza was placed into witness protection. New names, new locations, new routines. On paper, he was safe. But safety in this world is relative, because the code doesn't forget. Life on the outside didn't suit him. Barboza wasn't built for anonymity. He was volatile, unstable, loud in ways that made him visible. He struggled to disappear into normal life, and that made him a liability, not just to the government, but to himself. And here's the part that complicates the story. Joe Barboza didn't stop being dangerous just because he testified. Even after cooperating, he was linked to new violence, new crimes, new problems. The same traits that made him an effective enforcer made him impossible to fully control. The government had cracked the silence, but it couldn't rewrite who Barboza was. For the mafia, the message was clear. Talking might delay consequences, but it didn't erase them. The code might be weakened, but it still carried weight, long memory, long reach. In 1976, Joe Barboza was tracked down in San Francisco. A shotgun ambush, quick, final, brutal. The kind of ending that doesn't come with speeches or explanations. His death wasn't just revenge, it was a message. It said that silence, even when broken, still mattered. that the consequences might be delayed, years even, but they weren't erased, and that anyone considering cooperation needed to understand the cost didn't end in a courtroom. Joe Barboza changed New England forever, but he didn't escape it, and after him, the Mafia had to adapt. Because once the code is broken once, it can be broken again. Episode 2 doesn't end with his death. It ends with the question his story leaves behind. If silence no longer guarantees survival, what does loyalty even mean? What Barboza unleashed. Joe Barboza didn't just testify against individuals, he changed the rules of the game. Before him, cooperation in New England was almost unthinkable. Silence wasn't just expected, it was assumed. After Barboza, that assumption was gone. Every arrest carried a new question. Will this one talk too? That uncertainty did more damage than any single conviction. Trust inside the organization weakened. Conversations became guarded. Meetings grew smaller. Information stopped flowing as freely. Men who once relied on structure began relying on instinct instead. And instinct creates mistakes. Law enforcement didn't suddenly win, but they gained leverage. They understood the psychological shift. They stopped treating silence as impenetrable and started treating it as fragile. The New England Mafia adapted, but adaptation has a cost. More insulation at the top, more distance from the bottom, less protection for the men doing the work. And that imbalance created resentment. The same resentment that pushed Barboza to speak now existed in others, even if they never followed through. Providence still held power, but it was no longer unquestioned. Boston's crews watched closely. Independent operators tested boundaries. The balance Patriarcha built began to require constant maintenance. The era of automatic loyalty was over. From this point forward, silence became conditional. And conditional silence is dangerous, because once a system depends on belief instead of certainty, it starts to decay from the inside. Not loudly, not publicly, quietly, exactly the way it was built.
The only answer to Raymond and his emissary. At first it used to reach me, the informant of Canary Bed. It doesn't reach me anymore, because I have a purpose in life. I have only one purpose, and that is, the best way I can put it is to get with peace of mind.
That peace of mind lasted about 5 years. The mob had the last word. On February 11, 1976, Barboza was gunned down in the streets of San Francisco. Last week, 2 reputed gangsters in Boston, Gennaro Angiulo and Ilario Zanino, were arrested and charged with plotting Barboza's murder, and that of 2 of his friends.